Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. I've been mentioning in some of my videos this concept of rest. And in this video, I want to talk about what that means, a little bit more about what it means. In Hebrews 4:9 through 11, I'm just going to go there real quick because it talks about this rest and how we're supposed to diligently enter into it. It says, starting in verse 9, "For there remains therefore a rest for the people of God. For he who has entered his rest has himself also ceased from his works as God did from his. Let us therefore be diligent to enter that rest, lest anyone fall according to the same example of disobedience." And then it goes on to say, "For the word of God is living and powerful and sharper than a two-edged sword, piercing even division of soul and spirit, and of joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart." This rest is when we cease from efforting and working and thus striving in our own will, of being directed by our own self, where we come to a point of truly giving everything over to God. In the very core of our being, we are resting and trusting that He is governing everything, He is directing every step, and therefore we are not. We're at peace. And that peace reigns and rules in our hearts. And so you're in this state where truly, in your spirit, you are trusting God in all circumstances. So whatever comes up, there is no fear or worry or anything, because you know that God will work it out all perfectly, and what is coming into your life is very purposeful. So everything is seen as, what is God doing here? Wow, what is this about? What is He doing? And this rest, when you're trusting God to this extent, and you're abiding in that rest, you're really wanting Him to fill you, and it's Him directing your life. And there's some verses in Proverbs I want to mention in a minute, but you're being filled with the presence of God. So, because when you have given over your self-will, when you have said, "Yes, God, I truly want you to come in and govern my soul, govern my flesh, govern my life, you direct it, not me." And this is the approach that you have, and that's a deep level of trust. And that's what God's doing. So it's really Him filling you and His righteousness filling you, and thus His power. And that's why it's the Holy Sabbath, because the Sabbath is when you do no work, right? And the Sabbath was a sign that it was God who sanctifies us. It says that in Ezekiel 20:12, and I'll read that to you. It says, "Moreover, I also gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between them and me, that they might know that I am the Lord who sanctifies them." He renews us. He fills us and recreates us so that we walk in His righteousness. Now we know that Jesus is the fulfillment of all the feasts, all the Sabbaths. It says that, I believe, in Colossians. And so when Christ's Spirit is filling us, His righteousness is filling us, His love is filling us, and so therefore we're able to walk in God's law perfectly. So it's never us, it's Him in us, but it's something very real. And when we're in a state of rest, so that means we're letting go and trusting God, that's allowing God to move and fill us, and thus His presence comes within us, and that's holy. We become holy as He is holy, as it says, and it's a very real thing. You really start walking in righteousness. And what that means is that you trust that the words you say, the decisions that you make, that the desires that you're following, because that's how God guides you, by your desires. Because your desires become His desires. And when you commit everything over to Him, He directs everything, and He directs every step. And so He is governing truly your life. And so you rest, so you know that all that you do, all that you say to your children, is perfect, and it's perfect for them and what they need to hear. And you're not judging what is good, what is love. You are resting, and you are letting God flow through you. And this is a hard concept in a way to grasp, although it's easy to understand, because until you've really experienced that point of trust and that point of letting go of control and surrender over to God in terms of laying down your self-will completely and experiencing that rest and then experiencing His guidance and His moving through you, then you know what I mean. But that's what we're supposed to diligently seek, is this rest, because that's how we get filled with His righteousness. Therefore, that's how we experience true love, righteous love. That's how we have the fulfillment of the law, because it's Christ in us fulfilling that law, which is love God first and love others. That's the fulfillment of everything. And even when you read in Matthew 5, which Jesus came preaching the kingdom of heaven, and that is His reign in your spirit, and then that rest filling your life. So as it's filling you, and now you're operating in like a mind of God, and you're operating in line with His will because you're letting Him govern everything, and you're walking in His will and walking in that righteousness, that will change your world around you. And it says that those who fear God, that no evil will befall their home. And let me see, I believe that's in Proverbs 19. Let me just see if that's there really quickly so I can read it to you. The fear of the Lord leads to life, and he who has it will abide in satisfaction. He will not be visited with evil. So what happens is you're really trusting God. He makes your ways smooth. It says that He makes the ways of the righteous like a highway. So this is in Proverbs 15:19. The way of a lazy man is like a hedge of thorns, but the way of the upright is a highway. Literally, God removes the stressors from your life. He removes those things that would cause you to be out of a state of rest. He goes before you, who makes your way clear. It's throughout the entire word, but this concept, I feel, hasn't really been grasped by people, because you don't see many people truly abiding in rest, because if you did, you see the power of God flowing through them. And in fact, I don't think it was really possible until the time that we're now in. But I'll go into that a little bit more. But that's what I'm talking about, this rest, is that God literally removes the stressors from you. You are living a life without worry and stress, without fear, without anxiety, without any of those things. You literally are in a state of rest in your spirit and in the world around you, because the two are connected. One affects the other. And this is the kingdom of heaven, when you have that rest and you have God flowing through you, and then it is affecting the world around you, because it affects your relationships, it affects the decisions that you make, it affects everything, because now it's actually God flowing through you as He desires, as He governs, as He wills. So you really have to let go of all your expectations and how you judge things, and truly just let God take over, and wherever He may lead you. Even like Jesus, who was overthrowing temples, overthrowing that too, but overthrowing tables in the temple, it's like even that was a state of rest, because He was doing exactly the will of the Father all the time. And that's what that means to be in a rest. Because when you're at rest and it's not your will efforting, God's will is flowing through you. And this is, again, let me read just a couple of verses from Proverbs. And Proverbs actually is very enlightening about this type of rest. Like in Proverbs 6:3, it says, "Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established." This is God establishing your thoughts. You commit it to Him, He will establish that, so you will always say the right thing in that situation. And you don't sit there and judge it or condemn it or whatever it is we do. We let go and just, you know what happened, that's what was meant to happen, because God is in control. In verse 7, it says, "When the man's ways please the Lord, He makes even his enemies to be at peace with him." Because that's the power of God's righteous love flowing through you. Love is one of the greatest weapons. And there's one more verse I want to share with you. Verse 9, "A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." So you let go of that and you trust God to direct your step, and you don't judge how He's doing that. You just know that He is, and you abide in that rest. Till next time, keep stirring the deep. It's the one thing that changes everything else.